with all these professionals, if you go broad enough for the mind to actually dissect how I mean by looking at the God thing, where Oprah built her empire by being God, knowing it, knowing how to implement all of that, along with Anthony Robbins. He has all this knowing that the light bulbs clicked on for him as well. And he's done a wonderful job with putting this together where self help and God are essentially exactly the same thing. So, and then Wayne Dyer, man, this guy, he called it his source, which is essentially him and God together did this. And I just love how he defined what the word no means. He also, in one of his books, I can't remember which book it was, but it's where you die while you're still alive. And it's like this bird in this cage that, somehow, um, makes um, a physical, it's where your, I guess, transformation, where you give up and give everything to the God thing, and it's amazing how that works, and it's almost like as a human being you can't understand it at all, but once you give that up and you allow everything to go to God, which is a kind of weird, when you think about it, because again, I'm not a religious person. And by me saying God, every time I say that, I'm amazed that I say that. But it's actually something, absolute really cool. And then Morgan Freeman did his travels around the world and found out, along with all the other people, that God and self are the same. And that's what he came up with. The other one is Deepak Chopra, that all the light bulbs that he's professed, where like selfish is human, being selfless is spiritual, and by putting those two together, actually is where you become one. I mean, I learned a lot from him, and then you know also the twins in language, where being holy is part of the word whole, and that actually led me to see how the polar opposite words work perfectly. And now if we put each word that has its own polar opposite in the dictionary that already exists, but what we're doing is expanding on the dictionary so that we're creating or breaking down more rules and regulations. Now, that will actually put the spiritual part of what we're missing in society together. Um, where, and I only say this in English because that's the only language that I know, but you can do it in any language. I'm sure the principles work the same, but I want to have it written out totally in English, and then I can have it translated in other languages, to find out if they work exactly the same. Um, and then what I would like to do with Eckhart Tolle, he's put together where I am, like I am God, and just didn't finish saying it for some reason. But with all of these professionals, it actually made me see exactly what they were saying. I'm just doing what they've suggested. And I wrote a book about it. It's like 340 pages. Hold on. Now, where the church has made out the God thing to be a belief and faith really has derailed the whole truth and kind of robbed us of going deeper in the whole truth. For example, the baby thing when Jesus was a baby, maybe it's when all of us, when the individual family, your child with your significant other, to me, is the greatest form of love that's known ever at all. And when that gets taken away from you, it really, really has you look at life in a different way. And not saying why me or, any of that stuff, just saying why, what happened. With me being so analytical, I've figured this out. They just didn't go deep enough where it's every one of our children that are God's children are ours. Now, together with God, we made that child between a man and a woman the right way. And we didn't artificially inseminate them. We did it through sex. And we made that child out of love. Typically, the way it's supposed to happen, somebody didn't get raped or it wasn't in a weird, screwed up way. It was in a way that there was a deep love for my wife and I when we had these kids. Now, what derailed that? Well, the truth is, we're still a family. I mean, even though she stuck her head in the sand and not acknowledged me for the last 25 years, I get that. Whatever, it's done. But it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. There really is no reason for a divorce if you're educated exactly God's way. And I'm amazed that the churches say, leave it in God's hands. That's such a crock. We can answer our own prayers if we get off the church thing and we actually attack it that God sent us out to do. He's the example where language comes back to itself, so does God, and us comes back to ourselves in knowledge. When we know all of this, we know the God thing for sure, a rock solid knowing that has the full circle of knowledge. Now, until you know how to put that full circle together, and thanks to Oprah, I'm going to have to teach her what I learned to do this. And the foundation of knowing this is in the book. So you can't lose by catching that knowledge, even if you don't understand it. Once I sell 1 million books, this thing's just going to go off the hook. I think this thing can outsell the Bible, because it's the right way to look at God in ourself as putting God together, what he intended it to be. And this is such a cool thing because I can essentially hand over an intelligent universe to our children's children. I mean, if they'll let us. I know they know more than we do. Maybe if they know that it doesn't matter if you believe in God, it doesn't matter if you're an atheist, it doesn't matter if you're an agnostic. The church has made us look at God that way, which is completely wrong. It's not even, I'm going to say it's really not even partially right, because God is an education, and only an education. And with that education being right, God's way, we will live in a perfect universe, and we will understand the way the universe is supposed to work. Now, once we start getting on that same page and looking at it correctly, that's when we start answering our own prayers, okay? Because we are God's hands. But that doesn't mean we're not exactly the same in mind. We have the same intellectual knowledge through Him. We just have to uncover it and find it. Why are we such idiots and not looking at it that way? Why do we think that God has to be this supernatural being? Why didn't God put it together in us to tap into it, that that we're born with, that we already know? Now that we're becoming sophisticated all across the world, all across the planet, why can't we join together as one God? As I said, that once you unite self, then we have a chance at uniting marriage. Okay? And once we unite marriage, that's when our success rate comes to unite our communities. And once we unite our communities, we can unite our country. And then once we unite countries, we've united the world. Isn't that God's intent of living together peacefully and in harmony? Why is that so hard to understand? But we need to do it from within, inside out. And we need to tap in through that place, that little bit inside of us that is exactly the same as God. So why are we looking at it that we're just looking at it wrong? We're not looking at it with the aspect that there's a little part in us with all the knowledge in the world that's inside of us. And I'm telling you now, I uncovered it so that language will explain God as a whole, not the Bible. Now, I don't know, if the Bible is right or wrong. Like I told you, I'm not a religious person, only because I never believed in it. Now, with what I've said, doesn't that make more sense than having faith in something? Isn't faith, once you have faith, faith only exists until you know that you don't need faith anymore. Do you get what I'm saying there? Because you know you don't need faith. So I'm defining what faith is. Now, with a belief, that goes the same thing. You dismantle all beliefs by the correct knowledge. So why would you die for your beliefs? That's plain nuts. That's like saying, I believe this gun's not going to kill me, and you pull the trigger. That would be something stupid. I'm saying that we are crazy in our human aspect and not doing it appropriately. In a lot of the way we look at things, our own perception is incorrect. Now, the perception that the church has led us to believe is partially correct, but I would like to have it be all correct so that together we can move forward this nation, other countries, the whole world. We can actually become one race, the human race. We can be one God, God that is for everybody, one God, so that we can live by one truth and know it rock solid all the way down. I mean, if there's one truth, there's no way out. So that's why the truth is so important. And everything is circled around the whole truth, not partial truths that the churches teach from. But when you put the whole truth together on the process of how the whole truth works, once you read the book, you'll say, wow, this actually makes sense. I would like to put together a part of the website on globalstabilizedenergy.com to actually field questions from my team, putting this all together as one. That'd be nice.